I think the trade talk will accompany us, unfortunately, for some time. I think especially between the U.S. and China. I think the gap between both countries are just too wide just to close it in the near term. I mean, as we have heard and talked about it over the past few months, obviously China is willing to give in a little bit, but I think the ask from the U.S. is just too much. And what I mentioned at the beginning, I think now the Chinese government is somehow prepared to go for the worst. So I think whatever it might take from a fundamental perspective, economic perspective, they still want to support the economy and kind of smoothen out this negative impact just to deal with the US. So we don't really expect any immediate solution there. Maybe the tone will be less aggressive, and we are still, of course, hoping towards end of November, where will be the G20 summit, and obviously there's also meeting between the US and China scheduled, that at least they are getting to some sort of kind of pre-agreement, but we don't really expect a major breakthrough like what we have seen with Mexico and Canada. I think that's a totally different stake. So hence, we are still awaiting this and have also trying to assess this in our forecast for next year, which means slower, not really high inflation, but definitely a slower growth in China. So we have revised down our growth forecast to now 6.3. It's always tough, as you know, but I think that's also a direction that the markets are now more or less priced in.
Tuan, what about the 7 level for the yuan? I mean, obviously we're getting closer to that. Are we going to get there for a start, in your view? And if we do get there, what does it mean for confidence? Because it's such a psychologically important level.
Yep, I totally agree. We do have a 12 months forecast, actually.
Okay.
But
12 months from now?
From now. So the last time we did that forecast was end of September. So
not Q1 of next year, when tariffs go up to 25%?
Honestly, I mean, we wouldn't rule out that, of course, you can surpass that psychological mark. But we are quite confident the Chinese government plus PBOC will step in. Because on the one hand, obviously, it will help the Chinese exporter, as we have seen this year. So the Chinese yuan depreciation has more or less offset all this negative impact, which is, of course, relatively little at the moment, because the tariffs has just kicked in sometime this year, and then maybe the probable 25% will only kick in next year. So hence this year, the impact on an economic perspective hasn't been that much, and was more or less offset by the 10% depreciation of the yuan. But of course, from next year, I think it's more a sentiment and a confidence issue that if the yuan would kick off over 7, then we expect some intervention.
Still watching? Perfect. Click here to watch another great video from CNBC International. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.